a lot of people thought the Niners were going to take an offensive tackle with 31st pick in round 1, or maybe even trade up. I'm starting to think they're not going to do that now that they've extended Colton McKivitz's contract through 2025. What position do you think the Niners will draft in round 1 this year, assuming they don't trade out?
Yeah, I don't think they'll trade out, but I do see a little bit of a trade up. Maybe they go up a few spots to get with the Buffalo Bills or something like that. Like I try looking at teams like who like in the past, or maybe they have relationships with that be down with. Maybe like something like that. Like nothing crazy that would make them give up too much of a surplus for what they had the cash, because they need to really supply their team with some nice young players. So look, it's the cop-out answer. I think it's going offensive line. Like, look, the more we're talking about this last little segment, this last topic, it's like, dang, I'm even more confident that not offensive tackle, but now it's like I've been seeing Daniel Jeremiah talk about he keeps attaching the Niners to that Duke prospect, that center guard, Graham Barton, and I'm like, maybe that's the guy. I think that's where they're trying to look. I think they really want to beef up their interior offensive line finally with one of those. And look, you can kind of explain it like at the end of the round 1 for a nice, like pretty nice polished center. Like that makes sense, right? Like after tackle, your most valuable position on offensive line is center. So maybe he wants someone there to be a shirt up guy who can go left and go right and help seal block other sides or swing and make the right protections. So yeah, I think if we're going offensive line interior, specifically center.
Or they could draft a guard too. I'm looking at the Saints. They had Drew Brees. They drafted Cesar Ruiz a few years ago. He's their right guard. They drafted him in round 1 with the 24th pick. So the Niners, what they could do is take an interior offensive lineman, put him at guard, move him to center. Whatever they got to do. It's someone who could do both.
I think Graham Barton.
That would be pardon. Was it say the guy's name again?
Graham Barton. I think he has a 2-part last name. I forget his first name, but he's Graham Barton, basically out of Duke. He's like really propped up by Daniel Jeremiah, and he's like in the top 5 of everything for interior. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Out of Duke too.
Other names, but I'm just spitballing that one as of now because he's really projected to be end of round or early for round 2.
Interesting call considering Laken Tomlinson went to Duke and the Niners traded for him.
Really like those high, like I kind of like Ivy League teams, but like like those really like astute
for sure
colleges.
So that would be a great pick. It's not going to happen, Jose. So I think it'd be great. It's not going to happen. D-line.
That wouldn't shock me at all.
The end.
Wouldn't shock me.
And look, if they hit, it'll be a good pick. They need one. I'm thinking the Chiefs 2 years ago with the 30th pick, they got George Karlaftis. If the Niners could get their George Karlaftis with the 31st pick, that'd be a great pick. And they're set up. I mean, I don't think they want to. They're spending so much money on Nick Bosa, they can't really afford or justify getting another starter in free agency.
No.
So you get a guy on a rookie deal. Chase Young technically was on his rookie deal when they traded for him. I would be willing. I would actually put money down if the Niners will draft a defensive end in the first round.
Wouldn't be a bad bet.
No,
that wouldn't be a bad bet at all. I mean, look at the history. It's a little bit harder, especially because the Niners haven't had like a real first round pick the last 2 years, and even 3 years ago when they got Trey Lance, that's kind of like, come on, we all knew they were going for quarterback. So, but yeah, you would definitely, if you want to go that way, I have no problem with that. They only went offensive line once with McGlinchey. That was when they're like what, top 10, top 12.
Yeah.
So defensive line makes sense. It is a need. It's there. They need to finally get the Robin to Nick Bosa's Batman finally, because look, Drake Jackson was a bluff. He was a whiff.
Yeah.
They could. Brandon Gregory, he's fine, but he's a role player. Chase Young, he's just a guy. They need to find that guy. They haven't had that. They haven't had that D4 opposite of Nick Bosa since 2019, and you get that, then it's going to really unlock a lot of things to your pass rush.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's great to have great players. I'm just saying, like Drake Jackson, for example, is he worse than Colton McKivitz, or did the Niners just have higher standards on their D-line? Like Drake Jackson's done some good things for the Niners. I mean, he's basically a liability, but so is McKivitz. He's basically a liability, but so is McKivitz. And the Niners are willing to work around McKivitz, but not willing to work around Drake Jackson. Like, why do they have to have premium talent at all 4 D-line spots, but only on one offensive line? I'll never get that. I don't get it.
It's funny how you say that. So Drake Jackson is the Colton McKivitz of the defensive line.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not starting capability. Like he's fine for a good few snaps. No, but that's a damn good point.
To me, because again, I think the Niners look at it as like their D-line is going to win them the game, where the offensive line, their job is to not lose it. It's a whole different mentality.
I think that's also like goes back to what we always refer to every now and again to Kyle Shanahan's arrogance that he could just maybe just do a quick game type of offense or run it and mitigate those deficiencies. Where he really wants his defensive line to go out there and win it. Look, he's already been on record like he loves to build in the trenches, but he likes to go to pass rush first. I know he might have been mentioning defense specifically, but I'm pretty sure he meant that team wise, right? I mean, shoot, just look at how they keep trying to build in the defense, how he keeps trying to like resemble like those old Seattle defenses and such, like build in the trenches, make sure you're stockpiled and good. You know, you can't have there's no such thing as too many bullets on the counter for you to keep firing with your gun. And that's how he's viewing with his pass rush, like to keep being effective with it. But yeah, like it's just funny too, because when I did look at those mock drafts from Dan and Jeremiah and just other ranking, it's like there is like a nice run-on consensus on defensive linemen from 25 to the early round 2. I'm like, okay, dang. So even before when you mentioned this topic, I looked at it again. I'm like, oh damn, because I got a feeling you're going to say defensive line. And I'm like, oh damn, maybe the 49ers do go defensive line. And if it's a good player, you know, I don't think anyone would be distraught or up in arms over it. I'd rather take a more polished guy. Between a more polished defensive lineman versus like a more like raw like offensive lineman guy who you kind of reach for, I'd rather take the defensive lineman.
I guess what annoys me a little bit about this extension for McKivitz, nothing about McKivitz. It's just it's the Niners really doubling down and not changing.
Yes.
When they come up short, people are always like, you know, they're gonna tweak something this year. They're gonna look in the mirror. They're gonna be honest with themselves. They're gonna make one change. And that'll be what propels them to the Lombardi trophy. But they don't. They always act like they have the Super Bowl winning formula. And when they fall short, it's because, you know, bad luck or this or that. And all they got to do is just stick to the plan and they'll get there. Like
the woe is me mindset. Woe is me.
Yeah. Like the Chiefs change up more about their formula than you guys do, and they've won Super Bowls in different ways. You guys are the same team every year. Cheap O-line, expensive D-line. I mean, you know what it's going to be. And you don't switch it up, even though the offensive line was directly responsible for the team losing the Super Bowl. Directly responsible for it. Kyle could dispute that if he wants. He seems really intent on blaming the defense this year. It was their fault. No,
when you think about it, though, if you do restock with your offensive line with a lot of draft picks, like you're going to trust your starting lineup at offensive line with that many rookies. Like I'm sure 1, but you're going to go 2. Dare I say 3? That's impossible. Like I don't see Kyle ever doing that more beyond 1. That's going to be tough to envision. And again, we already know how cap strapped they are in free agency. I'm sure they're going to restructure a handful of contracts, probably get like 15, 20 million free. But it's like maybe you sign someone, but it's like. What are you really going to do? This kind of really stems from what you failed to do in years prior in terms of getting these guys and your misses on players like Spencer Burford, Jalen Moore, and stuff like that. Like these guys are literally just no better than emergency role players, emergency fill-in for a game or two.
It's true. And it's like, to me, Colt McKivitz would be not starting for most teams in the playoffs.
Yeah. No.
Not starting. But on the Niners, he is, and they're trying to work around it, and the rest of the team is so good, it could work.